stacks on her mind, grinding all day, hustle refined, shattering ceilings, she steers and obtain. Boss is a title, wealth is a game.
The podcast. Welcome, Meredith. I'm your host, Jackie Porter. And you've been back here. If you've been riding with us for a while, you know one of my favorite things to do is connect music with the topic we're going to talk about today. So check it out. Check out the song. What do you think this episode is about? And you can tell me as well, Meredith, you didn't know this artist, but does anybody know who is the group that's singing this song? It was like one of my favorite songs from the 90s, like the group anyway as well. Well, the song is Mind Trips, and the group is the Brand New Heavy. So if you knew this song and it's one of your favorites, maybe you like this, feel free to DM me. I'm like such a 90s baby. You know, I was born in the 70s. I love 90s music. Actually, I love 90s, 80s, 70s more so.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mind Trips I thought was a great song because so many high-earning women I know are burning out. And it's kind of a bit of a mind trip because when you're burning out, I feel like you don't know you're close to the edge. Like you could be really close to the edge and you don't know because ultimately you don't know what's going on inside you. And that's a dangerous place to be if you're close to about to break, right? So I thought, what a great opportunity to play this song. I love pretending to be a DJ, Meredith. So I'm like, I got to bring this song out today so that, you know, we can kind of think about how are we mind tripping ourselves into thinking we're okay, we're fine, and we're not. So I'm so excited to have you here, Meredith. So for those of you who don't know, Meredith actually is a coach and psychotherapist who specializes in helping women like myself navigate stress, transitions, and emotional overload. Meredith, so happy to have you on the podcast. I had saw you a few months ago, longer, and heard you talking to a group of women in finance about burnout. And I thought, I have to have you on the podcast. Because let's face it, so many women are dealing with burnout. They're not talking about it. And it could be corporate women, it could be entrepreneurial women. I had a lot of lawyers who face burnout. It's one of the major professions with burnout, right? And ultimately, so many high-performing women carry a huge mental load. And I really think it's important for us to talk about how do we recognize burnout? And actually, more importantly, Meredith, how do we cope with burnout?
Well, yes, that is the question, isn't it? Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to sit and chat about this topic because who doesn't like talking about stress? So yeah, it is about developing the self-awareness for it. So you know how to sort of look out for it in the future, because once it happens, you're going to have to recover. You have to deal with it, right? And proactivity is often the easier strategy than reactivity when it comes to burnout.
Well, it's good to know. So let's talk through exactly what is burnout, and then let's talk about coping strategies. So what would you say? How do you define burnout?
So like how do you define burnout?
Yeah.
So
what exactly is it?
So it's not it's not an official mental health diagnosis or anything like that. It's not in the DSM, nothing like that. But it is a phenomenon that gets recognized by like the World Health Organization. And the way that they define it is that burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by that prolonged, excessive stress time periods in your life. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, you're stressed from the start and then consistently stressed until you reach that breaking point. There could be times of peace in there, but It's constant up and down that will eventually start to weigh and tip you over the edge to that sort of, hopefully if you reach it, the burnout drop, the break point, at least that some people sometimes experience. It's really just about deep emotional and physical depletion.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you because, we're talking about high earning women, and that level of exhaustion that you're talking about, mental exhaustion, I see it so much. I mean, I've experienced it myself, and I'd love to know, how does it specifically relate to, or what's the journey that looks like typically for high earning women, high achieving women?
I think, especially for that group of professionals, they add so much extra to their plate.
Yes.
Right? To oftentimes feel like they are being able to compete at whatever level they feel like they're not necessarily at. Oftentimes we forget about all of the benefits that we have that, may not be the traditional way of doing things, but, women are pretty smart. We kind of know how to do stuff around here. But, in terms of like I guess I would say, especially for like hiring women professionals, the double burden of the professional level responsibilities, and if those people then have families, right?
Right.
You've got that added thing. Like, even if you don't necessarily have kids, I mean, if you've got like elderly parents, right? We're certainly entering into that generation where we've got, some of the baby boomers are starting to age into places where they need more care. So you've got that aspect of it, as well as potentially the aspect of having children and whatnot.
Yeah, and you say that, and I think I see it a lot in my practice right now, Meredith. And there was one client who said to me, who was dealing with both ends of that, right? Aging children, she called it, and aging parents. What an intersection, right? And
it is quite an intersection. And it is going to be one of the only generations, I think, that really experience that, because we have had people having kids later and later in life. So they probably will get that sort of separation from, hopefully, when their parents are aging. Oh no, they might even have it worse. They could have young children, and then we'll see. It's an interesting time when it comes to that type of generational shift.
So that could really just push you over the edge if you have that type of additional stress that you're dealing with.
Exactly. In terms of other things that we're seeing with women professionals, like why we are burning out faster and more frequently than, let's say, our male counterparts, is that sort of, there's a lot of, when I said double burden, I feel like that double burden goes in so many different categories. So we have the double burden of professional and family, and then we have the double burden of the gender bias, right? So like, be you, but don't be you.
So true.
Be nice, but don't be too nice. Be aggressive, but don't be bitchy. Like, like that, all those types of back and forth messages that we get sometimes. Certainly,
that's a mind trick right there.
Right? The having underrepresentation in leadership roles, I think, creates an added, whether you're a woman in the leadership role or not, like you're someone who would report into a leadership role that is male versus female. I think there's, a missing component too about like how you're managing your workload and what the expectation is from the gender bias, right? When women are socialized to be people pleasers.
So true.
Right? So that perfectionism, that need to be, looked at in that sort of way.
Yeah, someone pat us on the head and say, good job.
Like perfectionism whispers, like, if you're flawless, you'll be accepted, you'll be safe. Like the people pleasing aspect, if you're liked, you're going to be okay.
Exactly. Good job.
Right. And, so that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves where that's concerned. And that, those are all deeply rooted in that fear of rejection and failure and being too much or not being enough. And so, that tends to weigh on women.
Yeah, I was going to also ask, because all of those carry so much weight in terms of the pressures it puts on women who end up being burned out by them. Mm-hmm. What are some common triggers that you see in high earning women that leads them to end up following that path.
Like, and triggers in terms of like what causes them to burn out or
That's
have
right.
the sort of like the breaking point.
At the breaking point. That's right.
Oh, it's different for everybody, right? Because everybody has a different threshold of what it's going to take for them to finally be like, that's enough. And it might not even be a big event. Like, I think when I told my story at the
it was a great one.
Right. And I had this period of time in my life where like in the previous, I think it was 5 years, I had gotten separated from my husband and I had to sell my house and get a new house. And then I ended up moving in with my new partner and like adjusting to life there. And then I had gone back to school and was doing a master's program and like, all these things that have been building up. And then I had a health concern and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until there was an incident that was minor. I think I told you it was somebody blocked me on social media, somebody who was generally like, there was someone I thought of a friend, but inconsequential for the most part. And that's what broke me. So I think
the friend on social media, right? The last straw.
Like, that's the thing that broke me.
Broke.
Of all the things, not the cancer diagnosis,
right.
not the exam schedule that I had for school or whatever it was. No, that was the thing that broke me.
You're right. You can't ever tell.
No, you can't. So I think the question isn't what are the triggers? It's what are the signs that the trigger point could be coming.
Okay. Let's talk about that.
Right. So I think what you'll see is obviously you're going to get someone who is feeling tired all the time. And I mean, you see that often, like, especially in my work, women, especially in this stage of life, tired. We're always tired.
Right.
But it's more so just than the physical tired. It's the mental depletion. It's the brain fog that you'll experience. It's, you'll start to sort of feel numb.
Yeah.
To, like certain things, like the things that would have given you joy before. You don't find the joy in that?
I don't even care about what's on Netflix. I'm like watching Netflix, but not watching Netflix. Have you guys been there, ladies?
Oh my God. On my phone while watching Netflix? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Why am I even watching Netflix? I'm watching my phone watch Netflix. Really?
I know. That's a horrible habit in and of itself, right? They will be quick to, like, they'll find themselves reacting very emotionally, and when I say very emotionally, I don't mean like, because I don't like to ever say somebody acts too emotional, but your emotions don't seem to
matching.
Fit. Yeah, they're not like scaled appropriately.
Right.
You're quick to something, you might be even like quick to be the other way about it. Like, it's emotional and triggering in one moment, to the next you're like, okay, like move on, right? You have that type of up and down in your system that's going to lend you to potentially just cracking at some point. Obviously any type of mental health like struggle that you're having can and will affect your physical body. So
Absolutely.
you're going to get sick more often, right? You might have some unexplained pain, or like stomach issues. Like that's very like common because our digestive system is very connected to our mental health. So if you're not, if your stomach's not feeling well, there's a good sign that you might have something else going on in your life that's plaguing you.
Yeah, those are really good ones, because I think it's kind of when we started off talking about not knowing what's going on inside and actually not knowing how close to the edge you are, till one day somebody sends you a nasty note on social media and you're like, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, or whatever, because it's no longer, you can't even match your feelings to what's happening anymore, because you're not sure. I feel like it's because you don't even know what you're feeling.
Yeah, it is. Well, because you're purposely ignoring it, because if you don't, how do you make it through?
So it's kind of like bottled up, and every now and again it's like it bubbles out. Bubbles up. But how do I know so well? Confidant community. Just saying, I'm asking for a friend. We've all been there. We absolutely. If you're a lead in any kind of leadership position, I think that that just kind of goes with the territory. So it's so good that we're talking about this, because I think there's lots of people walking around with a whole bunch of things inside that they don't even know they've bottled up. So now they've seen that they have some red flags. They might be listening to this going, oh my goodness, check. What can they do about it? How can they cope? What are some suggestions that you can make for healthy coping strategies, rather than turning on Netflix with a huge bowl of ice cream, potentially?
Well, and that's not
asking for a friend again.
The bowl of ice cream and the Netflix is not bad.
I'll watch while on my phone, while texting,
I know.
or on social media, on Instagram. Okay.
That can be one of the things, but it can't be the only thing, right? So like, obviously setting boundaries, number one. And those boundaries really have to be, I guess they have to be doable for you. Like if you go and set yourself like, okay, so I'm burning out and I need to have like, I'm not working a minute past 5 o'clock, and I'm not, doing, I'm only taking I'm taking a 30-minute lunch, and I'm going to walk on my, if you set really strict, like those are good boundaries to set, but when you set them strictly, you set yourself up for failure. So what I'm saying is always give yourself flexibility. Set lofty goals, but not unachievable goals. Like there are people who, depending on their industry or their business, they can't just say there's no chance for me to be able to take a call after 5 o'clock, because there may be something that comes in after 5 o'clock.
Like I deal with lawyers, like criminal lawyers who do, sex abuse cases, like really big things. If a client calls, they need to take the call. And we do live in kind of a 24-hour, 7-day
news
cycle, 24-hour everything. So, internet, emails, people can, reach out whenever. Right?
So I think that when you go to set boundaries, especially on work time, it shouldn't necessarily be so much about how much you're going to work, rather than protecting time when you're not going to work. So, and being intentional about that time, right? So, you may have to, right? You may have to, take calls after a certain point, but you are at, whatever time it is. Say you've got your new favorite show coming on, just started watching Lioness. That's my new favorite show. I'm binge that. Which, by the way, if you're a woman in a high performing industry, like this is your show. Like, okay. Like noted. Okay. I'm only going to do that for this hour. I'm turning off my phone. I'm checked into this. I'm not and protecting that time. If a call happened to come in within that hour, you can get to it after. Yeah, it's an hour. If it's an emergency, you'll have something in place, but put it to the side. Or, better than Netflix, take an hour and go for a walk, right? Mm-hmm. Get outside. That's my non-negotiable now. Apparently there's a party going on upstairs. Saying, I agree. I heard that. That was an I agree, I think. The universe. The children banging around. Right. So walking, obviously being outdoors in the, in the fresh air, that is incredibly, incredibly healing. We don't necessarily give that enough credit. Just, if you don't like to walk, then just sit, do whatever, but just be in nature and be as connected or disconnected, I guess, to your phone and as connected to nature as you can. Yeah. Agreed. That's a huge one for me. And start to self-reflection. There's, when we're talking about what are the steps to take, I can read off the list, which is regular rest and recovery, emotional regulation and self-awareness, connection and support. All those things are super great and important. One of the key pieces to me, or the two key pieces, are setting that boundaries, protecting the rest and recovery, the re-energizing time, but also self-awareness, self-reflection. You will become so much more proficient as your own tool when you are aware of how you function in this world, and oftentimes we don't look at these things from a critical mindset standpoint, where it's often gotten brushed off for us many times before as, well, that's just something, that's a weird quirk that we do, or I just get super anxious about this particular situation. Okay, but why? and like when you're anxious, what happens in your body,
Yeah.
and how to sort of keep an eye on the physiological changes in your body when you start to experience the stress, the stress arousal system response, the threat response, right? That fight, flight, freeze type of response.
Well, it's so crucial what you're saying, because if you, like, what I hear when you talk about this, Meredith, is disconnecting, carving out your time, disconnecting and reconnecting. So disconnecting from all the external pressures, all of the obligations, and reconnecting to yourself first and foremost, so you can kind of check in what's going on inside you. Also reconnecting to nature, which is a great sort of, I almost feel like it's a mirror of, it gives you a mirror of, and a window to open up yourself to more reflection, because it's like taking in more fresh air. Kind of, you take deeper breaths in, and then you can kind of feel what's going on. And nature invites, it's like an invitation to reflect, right? So disconnect, reconnect, and then also to community. Like when you're talking about reconnecting, like when I'm in that state, I like have to, if I'm super, like if I feel myself getting like to the burnout point, like I have my emergency contacts.
Yes.
They're not like emergency contacts who are already in the hospital. I'm trying to avoid that. They're my emergency contacts. Like, I just need to vent to somebody. Let me vent, and then let's have a joke about it. Like, I know the people to call who literally keep me sane, keep my head on straight.
Well, I was going to say, are you familiar with Simon Sinek? I think his last name is.
Yes, I do love him.
And he has that, and he has that sort of like, he calls it the 8-minute rule. I've heard other people refer to it as like the 12-minute rule. So like his friend group, they have an agreement where it's like, if they are really struggling, when they make, because when you make a phone call to someone or you're connecting, it's like, hey, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? Like that very sort of programmed response. So it becomes like when you're struggling, you need it. Remember, like, it's only 8 minutes. Like you need 8 minutes or 12 minutes, whatever it is, to set you, like to reset you actually.
Yeah, exactly. That's why the whole disconnect, reconnect, disconnecting from your phone is an obligation, right? Like family and work, it's all obligations. Reconnecting is about the things that you owe yourself.
Exactly. And so you have that group of friends where you call up and be like, I need 8 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. If a friend, 100% that 8 minutes. If I give a call in the middle of the day in particular, I have those emergency, as I call them, emergency contacts.
Yeah.
Because they're a different kind of emergency.
And when we, one more thing I want to add about the setting boundaries thing. Obviously, there are boundaries when we're talking about work and what do you call it? Like commitments outside of from your professional life. You need to set the boundary with yourself that you're going to be okay to say no.
Huge. Oh, so huge.
Right?
And expect pushback, ladies, right? Because the people who are used to saying, oh, you know what? Call Jackie. She'll do that. She's that person. She's so sweet. She never says no. She's awesome. We love her. We love her. Who doesn't love being loved? I'm the youngest. I get it.
Yeah.
Right?
You're the one who always said yes?
I did. And I'm like, I call myself, and I know there's lots of women out there who are high achieving, who are all recovering people pleasers.
Yes.
Try to put yourself in the recovering category, high earning women. Right? I'm a recovering people pleaser. And, one of the things I can say about that is expect pushback when you say no, because the people are like, well, what about next week? Like, and do not, I repeat, do not give a reason for saying no, because with experience, I can say,
because they'll give you
Meredith, Dr. Meredith Bell.
Well, but okay, so if you've got, once that's done, then can you do the thing? Yeah.
No. Yeah. Exactly. At next week's better, you can speak for free or for a nominal fee. What about this? So you just have to say no, no, and I appreciate you offering the end.
Your time is not a negotiation.
Yeah. The most I will do is give a suggestion of somebody who might be able to do it, or that's pretty much it. Yeah. And I wish them well.
Understanding what your capacity is in general is a really, really important thing. And then, and being okay with saying no, and remembering that when someone pushes you past a no, that's their problem, not yours.
Yeah, and being okay with not being that well liked. I heard a quote recently, actually, from who was the Iron Lady? The lady from Britain. She was a former prime minister.
Oh, Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah, I know. I know there's people who have feels about Margaret Thatcher, but
she's polarizing.
She's very polarizing, but she was also polarizing because she's like, I don't need for everybody to like me. I feel like if I left the world and some people didn't like me, I've made a mark. And you got to respect the woman.
Oh, mad respect for Margaret Thatcher. I love
that.
She was portrayed in The Crown. That was really
that was fire. But for nothing else, she's like, don't expect that if you're in leadership and you're trying to make change and you're doing things, not everyone will like you. And ultimately, that's okay. Right.
It's interesting that when we talk about that in leadership, and I'm drawn back to the parallel it has with parenting. One of the things one of the things I always say to my clients who are parents and they're coming to me for parenting advice is, are we allowed to use swear words?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. I've said my things. I've said things.
I'm not sure. I just want to
I've said things.
But I'm like, if you're not,
you'll be forgiven in this confidential community someday.
If you're not fucking it up at some point in time, you're not doing your job right as a parent. Number one. Number two, if your kids don't hate you at some point in time for what you're doing, then you're not doing your job right as a parent. Okay. They will learn later that that was a good thing, and they'll probably appreciate you for it.
Exactly. Child, how you like me now? My mother was the queen of that. She was never trying to be my best friend. In fact, she's like, I'm not your best friend.
Yeah. And so that kind of mirrors it in professional world leadership. Like, yeah, no, you're not supposed to be their best friend. You're going to have to make some hard decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a way to balance it, but you can't please everyone all at the same time.
Well, this brings me to my next question, since we're talking about balance. First of all, for someone who's trying to do amazing things, achieve amazing goals, is there such thing as balance? And what does balance look like if you're trying to avoid burnout?
Ooh, look at that. Is that the $1 million question?
That is the $1 million, probably the multi-million-dollar question.
Got it. And you know what? If I had here's the plan, this is how it's going to work. I'd be a millionaire.
I was going to say the 90 days. I'm ready to sign up for the 90-day plan. Go on.
It's really an ongoing battle. It's practice makes perfect. You have to to avoid that burnout, which, I think it's very unlikely that everybody would at some point in time not describe themselves as like, yeah, I think I'm a little burnt out, right? And there's going to be scales of that, and depending on what, life circumstances brings their way. But it's recognizing, reflecting, and, looking out for the signs that you saw the last time so you don't repeat this time. And like, we're talking about, is it really possible to have balance? Yes. What does that look like? That depends on your life. That depends on what's really important to you. Can you, and I think it was Shonda, oh my gosh. Yeah. The Grey's Anatomy, whatever. She did a speech at I think it was a convocation graduation type thing, where she was talking about like this idea of, that we can have it all.
Yeah. No.
And, if you want to have it all, it's possible. But what you have to understand is that the all that you get isn't necessarily going to be 100% of each of those categories. Right. So you're going to there are sacrifices that have to be made along the way, in terms of like, you can have the family, and you can have the big, crazy film career that she has. But there's going to be things that have to, take a back seat at certain times. Like, maybe you're not able to get to every kid's performance. Right.
That's right.
Or you can't, or you might choose, if the kids take priority, I can't write that television show this time. I'm going to have to miss out on that opportunity. Right. So it's, it's figuring out what's brings you the most joy. And sometimes we get wrapped up.
It's 100% right. In fact, I was having this conversation yesterday with a really good friend of mine who is here from the States. And we were talking about the fact that she's writing another book. And so she's like off a lot, writing, like taking time off, sabbaticals and time off on her own to finish, because she has to do it by September. And her son said to her husband, Mom's always working these days, right? And he's like, Mom also funds all of our holidays, and she funds your private school, and she funds. And so and I'm here, and we try to, tag team each other. So you're fine. Were you complaining about any of those things? I think not. So yeah, it's really a great reminder to know we can't have it all. We probably can't have it all at once. And it's becoming clearer and clearer to me that there's no 90-day plan. There's no Ozempic pill I can take to instantly get balance. So yeah. I'm just going to have to come to terms with that. And so I have actually another question that's somewhat related, somewhat unrelated. And I know you and I spoke about it when we were together. And it was about this link I see between high-performing women who have either been diagnosed with ADHD or think they have ADHD like I do.
Yeah.
And how that kind of, what impact that might have on burnout that you might, or how you even see it show up. I'm just fascinated.
Well, I think, if you have ADHD, you're especially prone to burning out because like that just is the nature of that business because you are just constantly dopamine seeking because you're dopamine deficient, right? And that hyperfixation and you're all in, right? So it does make you more susceptible for sure. And, like you're talking about this, there is this, I guess, increase that we're seeing with women who are in their late 30s, early 40s, 50s, that sort of generation of, they're now having children, or you're seeing a little bit more information out there about ADHD. And they're like, that sounds like me.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Exactly.
Maybe. And I mean, one of the things that I think we often get hung up on is sometimes the diagnosis, right? So it's like, well, I think I have ADHD. Right. Well, if you look at, you can go online and find a very quick, 8 to 10 questionnaire where it asks you a few questions and then it gives you a, it's likely that you might, and further testings in order.
Hard.
You look at what your situation is and where you're really struggling and go with the tools that, if you had ADHD, which it's okay for you to say, yeah, I'm pretty sure I do, and follow those tips and tricks. And if that's not working for you, then try something else. And if that's not working for you, because there's so many different, tactics and methodologies we can use with, some of the issues that women face with ADHD. But because of how dynamic, at least in my experience, how dynamic this sort of experience is, you have to be willing to roll with those punches because something's going to work for you. Great. And then all of a sudden it's going to stop. And then you're going to start to feel guilty and be like, what's wrong with me? Maybe I don't have ADHD. And you have that self-criticism loop that comes in, right? So you have to be prepared to roll with the punches and know that if it's working and it's working great, fantastic. But it might stop at any moment. And that doesn't mean that, you're broken. It just means your brain's now tired of it. It's now used to it. It's now
dopamine hit.
So you need to find a way to switch it up. And then that'll work for a while. And so you have to be able to be as adaptable in your tips and tricks with how you counter that as possible. Medication for women for ADHD, that's another thing you can talk to your doctor about. There are lots of opportunities out there, and a lot of women who have been misdiagnosed with anxiety and depression when maybe they should have been treated for ADHD. So that's always a good thing to look at. Maybe you're, looking at the wrong picture.
Yeah, it's interesting. A quick last note on that was a conversation that we had that day when you said, a lot of times women are not being diagnosed for ADHD. We hear about a lot of hyperactive young boys, but
right. Yes.
It doesn't, there's hyperactive young girls, but it doesn't show up the same way. So we get diagnosed for ADHD much later as a result of that. And as you were saying, I see these high achieving women who are doing so many different things. And I don't know, I'm not a medical or psychologist to that extent where I could see, is there a link? But I do see that these women suffer and probably could use your help if they are just patient with themselves, because we usually aren't at doing these things, trying different things to cope with our ADHD and burnout and having all of these additional stresses as a result of the ADHD. What I was going to ask as a final question is, what is one reframe you think you can offer our community on how they can pause without guilt? Because I think sometimes rest seems really radical for some of the women in this scenario.
If you wouldn't give that advice to a friend, why would you give it to yourself? Like, if you're at that point where you're like, I feel so guilty, I think I should rest, but like, I've got all this other stuff to do. I've got this, that, or the other thing. I can't. I just can't. If you wouldn't tell your friend that, like, say, oh no, you should just keep going, right? Like, you're fine. You've got a lot to go on. If you tell it to your friend, you need to tell it to yourself.
Wow. Yeah. So we need to be more of our own best friend than we are as women. Yeah.
Right. We're so critical of ourselves.
Truth.
Everyone's their own critic, but women especially. And if you're sitting there in your head beating yourself up about taking a break, ask yourself, if you were your friend, what would you say to you? Yeah. And I can guarantee you're not being that way to your friend. So treat yourself like you treat your friend.
All right. Confidant hiring community, you need to be kinder. Okay. We're going to do a quick lightning round, Meredith. Thank you for dropping all of these gifts on us. And I really hope this hiring community is taking it in. I'm certainly taking notes. So quick lightning round. One word, a daily ritual that grounds you. What would that be?
Fresh air.
All right. A book you'd recommend for the women on the edge of burnout.
That's hard.
We'll come back to that one.
I'm not. What did I just read recently? A fun book, light, fun book.
I love those
books. Something that you're going to enjoy.
Yes.
I don't know what it is, but that's
okay. Oh, so read something juicy.
Chicklet.
Yeah, fun. Nothing.
Yeah, whatever.
Nothing ambitious. Something like actually on the opposite end of ambitious.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend. Something fun.
Perfect. Your favorite way to decompress after a long week? Could it be lioness?
No, it's being outside and just kind of sitting there and being in my back. I love being outside. I love my backyard. I'll sit there and just kind of watch the animals go by, watch the trees.
Amazing. Nature. Okay. And then one myth about burnout you'd love to bust.
That you just have to keep working harder, that like it gets easier. Just keep pushing through. No.
All right. Stop pushing through it. Okay. So Meredith, thank you so much for being here and sharing such compassionate, actionable wisdom for our listeners. So tell me, where can people find you if they want to learn more about the work that you do? I think lots of women listening to this think, oh my goodness, I might need help. What should they do?
To find me, you can go to my website. It's meredithbaileyrp.com. And you can find my booking platform there and book a 30-minute consultation. I offer 30 minutes as opposed to the typical 15 to 20, because I feel like you need a little bit more time to be able to talk with your therapist or your potential therapist, I should say, to determine whether or not they're a good fit for you. Because, I can help most people who come knocking at my door, but they need to be ready to let me help them. If that.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. It's being ready and then taking action.
Yeah.
So I feel like ready, take action. Then otherwise you're going to go back into, I'm going to get to this.
And being open to trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to our listeners, if this episode resonated with you, take it as your sign to check in with yourself. You're worthy of care, not just productivity. And I really want to encourage all of you, prioritize taking care of yourself. That's what I keep hearing. That sounds like the message that Meredith kept giving us over and over again. So if you love today's conversation, please subscribe, rate, and share the Hiring Women podcast. Sharing is caring. Until next time, Hiring community, keep thriving, and most of all, take care of you. Money is power, and you deserve to own yours. So let's keep building, let's keep earning, and let's keep living the life that you want. Until next time. See you all very soon, Higher Community. Thank you so much, Meredith.
She's a bad bitch and she signs checks. Built her own throne. What you expect?